All right, the Jaguars get new brass. We have been trying to figure out what they will and won't do. Well, they showed you on day one and day two of the tampering period. Now I'll explain it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's without question here on Locked On Jaguars that it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen every dayers. And if you're new to the show, I hope you can stick around and enjoy as well. Today's show is always everywhere you get podcasts, whether you like watch them or listen to them. Make sure you tap in to that location so you do not miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. All right, here's what we're going to discuss today. In the third segment, I'm going to hit Jordan Lewis's role. There's been some talk about what did they sign him for. Well, there's another team that made a similar signing, and I'm going to try to attach these two together and tell you what I've heard from some pretty reliable people. Who is Diami Brown? We'll go over his stats and numbers and once again tell you why numbers don't lie, but they also don't tell the whole truth. And why did they sign him? We're going to start at the very top, though, explaining the offensive line strategy. I believe this is just the beginning. So I have to tell y'all this, right? I love interacting with people on social. The problem is it comes up is when I don't say something that someone wants to hear, all of a sudden now I'm selling out. Okay, so we'll get this figured out and explain this to the people that don't know who I am and understand the way I move. If I make this about me and all of the things that I said I wanted them to do that they haven't done, especially since it's the new regime. Now, I've done that before with guys who have been here for a while because I saw the way that they were doing things were wrong, and there was evidence through these videos that I put up here every single day that maybe had they done some of the things and suggestions that I had made the other way, it would have been different. I'm not going to do that with new people because we've spent all offseason wondering, first of all, who they were going to hire. And then when those folks got hired, the thing that I've always said is I make my analysis of them based on tendencies. I don't know what their tendencies are. I don't know. I didn't know anything about most of these coaches and James Gladstone until they got the job. I know Tony Baselli, but I don't know how he would run a team. I'm not going to come on here and be angry at the Jaguars because they didn't do what I wanted them to do or what I thought they might do, because I didn't want them to do anything other than get better and to make sure that they had a very, very good approach to building this team. The offensive lines, the additions that they made on the offensive line in particular, I like them because I can understand the reasoning behind it. What we thought doesn't matter anymore. They're actually doing it. So it's our job to analyze what they're doing and try to explain it as best as we can to the fans. I'm not going to make this about me. It's about them and what they're doing, right? Patrick Makari is a very good player. If you watch the tape, Baltimore runs to the left a whole bunch, and the dude lined up a whole bunch at left guard. He also lined up a whole bunch at right tackle. He also played center. That's a versatile player who's been on a very good football team. When you watch the tape, it shows what he does very well and why they like him. They also signed a depth piece from the Dallas Cowboys. In signing that depth piece, they've basically they fixed the floor. And I know people use that term too much, right? That they're fixing the floor. But I want you to take the Jaguars' entire depth chart. What you do is when they go get a person like that, make sure that you slide him into where you think he slides. And you can't tell me that this is not a better third tackle, a better third option than anyone else has. Let me explain the Robert Hainsey signing to you, because there's a lot of people that sit there and go, well, he got cut or he got benched. When the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a playoff team last year, drafted Graham Barton, Jaguar fans were like, dang, man, that's the guy that we wanted. Over Brian Thomas Jr., mind you, that's who a lot of people wanted. You see how it worked out? You got BTJ. Would you trade that now? No, you wouldn't. But Tampa probably was like, look, we're a playoff team. We got our dude Hainsey. He's on he's last year of his contract. Best player available on the board is Graham Barton, who plays both guard and center. Let's see what happens when we get him into camp. Turns out they like his upside at center. They played him over the other guy. Doesn't mean the other guy can't play. So when people say, why did Liam Cohen sign him after he benched him in Tampa? Well, Liam Cohen didn't bench anybody. Liam Cohen was with Tampa 1 year. When he doesn't, I guarantee you Todd Bowles decides who starts and who doesn't. I guarantee you the GM and Todd Bowles talked about who decides and who doesn't. I bet the recommendation comes from the offensive line coach who plays and who doesn't. The fact that Liam Cohen had 1 year of experience with Hainsey and he's brought him here, that should tell you more than anything about how he feels about him, right? If you look at the center position, they had Mitch Morse, who everyone knew wasn't good enough, and they still actually have Luke Fortner. When folks were saying they wanted them to bring in a starting center, whether it's Drew Dahlman, whether it's drafting someone, and we don't know if these guys are going to be around, that means that one of those guys is going to be gone, right? Well, the one guy that folks wanted to probably be gone is Luke Fortner, but Mitch Morse left. So now you're sitting there and you got Luke Fortner, who y'all all admit can't play. And then what if they were going to target Gray Zabel, but they can't find a team to help them trade back up into the first round, and they don't want to move from the fifth position? And even if they could, what if somebody jumped in front of him and took Zabel? Now you're stuck with Fortner and your next best option at center, whether it be another draft pick or a free agent. That's not where they wanted to be. What if I told you they signed Hainsey, right? What if I told you they signed Robert Hainsey, someone they know very well, someone that they believe is better than Fortner, and give him a 3-year deal with $13 million in guarantees, right? And he can get you going because he understands the offense, and maybe Liam liked him maybe more than the brass liked him down in Tampa. He has started there. He was their starter. Doesn't mean he's a bad football player, right? Well, now what happens is if they go and draft Jarrett Wilson on day 2 of the draft in the 3rd round, they can still move on from Fortner. Now what you have is you have a young guy playing center or competing for a starting spot. They are right in the position where Tampa was at the beginning of last year. At the very least, Robert Hainsey is going to start. It's not a bad spot. He took him to the playoffs, right? At the very least, he's going to start, and then you have a young guy who's in waiting. Even if they get Zabel, what if they still get Zabel? They can play Zabel at guard. They can play him at one of the guard spots. They can look at Ezra Cleveland and say, okay, if we're better off with Hainsey at center and Zabel at left guard, that's what we're going to do. And they could make Ezra Cleveland the swing interior lineman. So a lot of people are making this out to be, well, we went and got somebody else's backup, which is true, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I said they needed 4 or 5 offensive linemen. They've gotten 3 already, right? What you're going to start seeing if you just look at the depth chart is there are going to be guys that are either going to be pushed down or pushed out. Pushed down or pushed out. You're not going to go out there and sign Ronnie Stanley and then you got a $15 million backup at left tackle. It's just not going to happen. That's not the way this works. There are folks that thought the Jaguars are going to get T. Higgins, trade a 2nd and a 4th round pick for T. Higgins. They thought they were going to sign Carlton Davis, Javon Holland, and Drew Dahlman. All 4. Look at the number that all 4 of those guys are going to play at. Oh, and by the way, they wanted Trey Smith too. They said this is my wish list, and it wasn't an either or situation. It was we want them all. They would have spent the most money in free agency history in one day if they did that. It is not realistic. This ain't fantasy football. And if it's that easy, then all of us need to have jobs in scouting. You need to hope and pray that the pro personnel department and the people that did the scouting find something about these guys that you don't find. I also believe the Jaguars are not done on the offensive line. They could use that 5th pick overall on a guy who can play guard and tackle and then push somebody else out. They could very well do that. They could very well play Patrick Makari at right tackle, draft Campbell from LSU and play him at right guard, because a lot of times people that play right guard can play left tackle. And then that kid even mentioned that at the combine, that if you want him to play right guard, he can play right guard. And now you are pushing Ezra Cleveland down to be your swing interior lineman. And then they can come back and get another developmental center. Go and look where the Rams center was drafted. I'll tell you right now, he was drafted in the 6th round. They signed people in free agency and that kid beat him out. I think James Gladstone, and this is not saying like he's looking at it like this, well, we can find a guy. No, I think they have identified somebody, just like they identified those other guys in Puka Nacua and the rest of them. I think they have identified 2 or 3 people that they believe that they can win with, and they can get them on day 3. What if James Hainsey is going to compete with a rookie and Fortner's out of the picture? It'll make a lot more sense to you. I don't think they're done on the offensive line. I'll discuss that more in segment 2. And especially what I'm going to get to is this. Who is Diami Brown? My man David Harrison of Locked On Commanders gave me a little clip and a glimpse for us to find out exactly who that is. We'll do that more here in the second segment of Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. Taking care of your mental health can feel like a big investment and it's just important as taking care of your body. Trust me, I know. Traditional in-person therapy can be very expensive and cost between $100 and $250 per person. But with BetterHelp, you can save up to 50% per session. BetterHelp offers a flat fee for weekly online therapy sessions, making professional support more accessible and more affordable. With over 30,000 therapists and over 5 million people helped, it's the world's largest online therapy platform. I paid out of pocket for therapy for my children and even myself when I was trying to deal with pain management. And let me tell you, I tried BetterHelp and it absolutely worked for me, and it can do the same thing for you. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, moving around here. Segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. Talking about the offensive line strategy, they're not done yet. We have, and I'll repeat this. This is the talking point of the day. We all wonder what kind of GM, what kind of strategy do they have, right? I'm not going to spend my time wasting my time because the ones that we guessed or thought of and said maybe this could be, they didn't do it. It's my job to explain what they are doing, to try to make everybody smarter, and leave the guesswork out of it, and really explain what they're doing. You can not like what they're doing. Don't get mad at me because I'm telling you what they did and maybe offering some solutions up as to the reasons for what they're doing. Folks get too familiar and too uncomfortable and then start pointing too many fingers. And nobody factually knows whether it's going to work or not. Give them the benefit of the doubt. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm going to show you an example why numbers don't always tell the truth, even though people say numbers don't lie. Diami Brown has been in Washington for 4 years. He has 700 yards receiving combined in all 4 of those seasons. Darius Slayton has 4 individual 700-yard seasons in 5 years. So when I mentioned Darius Slayton as a possibility, what I'm really mentioning is who is out there that has played some ball, caught some passes, understands the NFL, has probably underachieved because they've been on a bad team, or you can look at 4 700-yard receiving teams as overachieving when you're playing with a bad quarterback and a bad line in New York, and you try to project. So that's why I said maybe Darius Slayton or somebody like that, because I know you can't go out here and get T. Higgins. I know you can't trade for Tyreek Hill. And I don't think this team is set up to do that anyway, and I think it'd be bad business. Cooper Kupp is 32 years old, coming off injuries almost every year the last 3 years, and he's lost a step a little bit. I did mention Chris Godwin. What I was really saying is they're going to get a speedy wide receiver, and another professional pass catcher. But I was told that Darius Slayton was mid, and I'm trying to bring bad players to the team. Well, I'm not bringing anybody here. I'm pointing out the fact that the Jaguars, their brass may look at their roster and say, we need another guy who can get in and out of his breaks, and he's a run after the catch guy. So when they go sign Diami Brown, they didn't sign the player I mentioned, but they did sign the player who they believe has the most potential. Now, Diami Brown's evaluation from them could come from a number of ways. It could come from the fact that he had his best season in his life last year in Washington on the last year of his contract. Some people may look at it and say, well, Washington needed a receiver and they didn't keep him even though they had $90 million in cap space, right? And then you compare it to Darius Slayton, who got 3 years, $36 million. Well, what if the Jags brass was interested in him? They were obviously interested in speed at receiver because that's what they went and got. But Slayton's number was that high. Diami Brown's number was here for 1 year for $10 million, and they didn't see a big difference in their ability. Maybe they saw him heads up, like in the playoffs. Diami Brown had the best game of his life against Tampa right in Liam Cohen's face. Or it could be they have an evaluation on him that they have had because this is what they do. The pro personnel side, maybe James Gladstone, loved him when he was in college and they were going to draft him in LA and they didn't get, I don't know why they chose him, but they did. So if you want to know what you're getting, here's my man David Harrison from Locked On Commanders, who I asked exactly who and what Diami Brown is and what he represents. Here's 2 good minutes for you.
What up, Wig? You want to know what the Jacksonville Jaguars are getting in Diami Brown? You're getting a very, very solid deep threat receiver, a guy that can really do some damage one-on-one against cornerbacks, a guy who's going to take advantage of guys like Brian Thomas Jr. getting all of the attention that they're going to get on the opposite side of the field or even sometimes on the same side of the field. Diami Brown, a very quiet guy, very, very, mild-mannered type of individual when you speak to him, but don't take that as a lack of confidence. Diami knows what he's capable of. The physical tools have always been there throughout his entire career. Since he came in from North Carolina, drafted all those years ago, the physical tools have always been there. What's been a little bit lacking is not necessarily the football IQ in literal terms, but the football IQ in execution terms, right? And you saw that really kind of start to click there during the playoff run late in the season, nearly matched his entire season production just in 3 postseason games. That's pretty impressive all by itself. Now, you did see a little bit of ball security issue there in the NFC Championship game, so that's something that obviously he's going to want to kind of clean up. That's something that's really kind of been there since he's been in the NFL. So if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars receivers coach, that's the first thing I'm working on with him is where to put that ball when you're running down the field. Because in that NFC Championship game, I'll tell you, he made that catch against Philadelphia Eagles. He's running the ball, and all I kept saying was, don't fumble it, don't fumble it, don't fumble it. Sure enough, fumbled the ball. It's just part of who he is, something that's going to have to get worked on. But if the football IQ continues to develop, the athletic traits stay there, he can stay healthy, and he learns to tuck that ball away while he's running. You got a receiver who's got number 2 receiver upside. Wouldn't hand him the job. Absolutely make him earn it, but he's got number 2 receiver upside. But if you need him to be your 3rd or 4th option, you got a very solid one and a guy that can make big plays for you. Have fun with him. He's a lot of fun.
Well, there you go. Straight from the horse's mouth. The 1-year deal sounds very right. It also reeks. I'm trying to remember the wide receiver's name. But the Colts had a dude years ago. It was probably 6-7 years ago, and the Jaguars signed him to a 1-year deal. And he didn't do much here. It was a 1-year, $10 million prove-it deal also, and he did not do much. I think the Jaguars are banking on their ability to scout players. I think they're banking on the ability to look at Diami Brown and say, you know what? The best is yet to come. And he's a dude that's bigger than Christian Kirk playing in that slot. He's probably faster. In fact, I think he is faster. And he is an ascending talent. This is what they have to do. And they have to do this because they have used too many resources on other people at that position making all of that money. Gabe Davis is one of them. I happen to think that this kid is going to be the guy that they look to make 2 or 3 big plays per game. He is their Jamal Agnew, who is a full-time receiver, 3-4 touches a game. That's what I think you're going to get from him, right? And he's also another deep threat, just like BTJ. BTJ is going to be the dude that gets the first look. The second look, if the line can protect, goes to the guy that's fast and can create separation as long as the pass rush has not gotten to the chest of Trevor Lawrence. I also want to talk about Jordan Lewis's role. We'll discuss Jordan Lewis's role. I'm going to get Patrick Makari. I'm going to get a video about Patrick Makari tomorrow and tell you what he's going to bring to the table. But we're going to talk about Jordan Lewis's role because there's something else that came up. And when I made the suggestion, as it pertains to Jordan Lewis and Jarian Jones, people started yelling and barking at me again. I really don't know where they come from. I don't understand. Outside of coaches and scouts, I watch a lot of tape because this is my job. I do this for a living. Some of the opinions that come in, I think it's just people who really don't know. And they're just guessing or they're reading somebody else's stuff. I have no idea where all of this stuff comes from because somebody actually told me Jarian Jones was too little to play outside. Jarian Jones is 6 feet, 188 pounds. Since when is that a little corner? I don't know. We'll discuss Jordan Lewis's role here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I love March Madness, man. March Madness is very unique. There is nothing else like it, and you can trust that there will be upset, so you better make sure you get in on the action. Here's what I want you to do. Go and visit FanDuel.com, and it'll get you in on the action, right? It's all about college hoops, all about the action, all tournament long. Make sure you visit FanDuel and get the $200 in bonus bets when you make or when your first $5 bet wins. That is FanDuel. All right, the actual signing day is here upon us for free agency. Starting at 4 o'clock, anyone who has committed to a team, I say commitment like it's high school because that's what it feels like, right? Anyone who has agreed in principle to a deal, it will become official today at 4 o'clock. And I assume at some point tomorrow or this weekend, you get introductory press conferences at some point, or maybe whenever. I think you will. I think that's what's going to happen, and you'll hear from the brass as to where they see those guys fitting in. But we spend all of our time prognosticating, right? We spend all of our time trying to guess, trying to put the puzzle together, content-wise for possibilities. And I remember, I always tell people, don't do mock drafts until you do free agency. Because after you do free agency, that's when you have a real general idea. And even then, you might not know where the team is heading. And then when it's a new organization or a new structure in an organization like the one we have here, it's your first taste of what their outlook and their tendencies are. I think we should spend more time saying, this is what they've been trying to tell us without saying it. They're answering your questions. You may not like it. You may not understand it, but we can't get angry about it because they didn't do what we thought they should do from our recliner or from our desk. It just doesn't work that way, man. Let's see how this thing works out. Jordan Lewis, mind you, one of the top 3 nickels in the NFL. Dallas's players, media, and everybody else raves about the dude. Can't we just be happy that the Jaguars got that guy? Well, no, not our fans, because we said our slot was Jarian Jones, and that was it. I spent weeks saying they may get players you don't think they need. Similar to last year, the Bucs didn't need a center. They took best player available. He was better than the guy that they got. He got benched. And the Jaguars just signed him. This is what happens. Everybody who's happy about Diami Brown, you know what? Washington felt like they didn't need him. And it's okay. Andre Cisco got $10 million to go play for the Jets. Jaguar fans didn't want him back. It's okay. This is the way it works in the NFL. But at the very least, Jordan Lewis is an upgrade for this secondary. He's somebody they targeted. He's somebody that they wanted. They went and got a guy who was one of the 3 best players in the entire National Football League at his division, at his position. And all I hear is people saying, well, he's 30. Yeah, he's 30. What type of 30, though? Is he a hurt 30 or is he a healthy 30? He's a healthy 30. And while they are not building a team just for 2025, because I believe he has 2 or 3 years left in him, they are building his team. And listen to how this sets up. They're building the team like, okay, right now he's that good. In 2026, if he's not, and Jarian Jones has continued to develop, then y'all get exactly what you were going to get anyway. You got 1 good year. You got a good on-field tutor. You got a guy who can help you win right now. And Jarian Jones now doesn't have all of that pressure as just a second-year player. Now you get another season of him, and guess what? He can just slide right in there in the last year of his contract and take the position back. Here's what I heard, though. I heard that Jordan Lewis may start out outside. I did a podcast not long ago, and I talked about Nate Hobbs. I said, too bad they don't need a nickel because, Nate Hobbs can play. Well, the Packers signed Nate Hobbs. The Packers are going to play him outside in their base defense, and they're going to play him inside in the slot position on passing downs. My friend Pete Prisco from CBS Sports, senior writer, hit me up yesterday, and y'all can see it is on social media. He said, I think they're going to start Jordan Lewis outside, and on passing downs, they're going to put him in the slot. Teams have done that. Jalen Ramsey does that all the time, and I'm not comparing him to Jalen Ramsey, but there are teams that do that all the time, right? So it makes sense. I said that I thought this means that either Jarian is going to be the backup nickel, he is going to be a strength in dime where you have 2 slots. Baltimore is in dime a whole bunch, man. They are in dime a whole bunch, and Baltimore has 5, 6 DBs in at one time. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think they're going to play it that way, but you have to win on first down first, right? So if they line Jordan Lewis up on the outside, and he's played some there, and Jarian Jones is in the slot, it's no harm, no foul. If they flip-flop him on third down, no harm, no foul. Or if they go in dime and they go out and draft somebody else like Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter starts outside, Lewis in the slot, Campbell on the other side, and then Jarian Jones can be the guy that plays for all 3 of those guys at one time. This is how you build up your depth. There's a dude, I cannot remember his name, but I'm going to go to the 2022 Jaguars roster. And I'm going to tell you exactly, and I'm going to prove a point here, the point that I'm trying to make for you. There's the point that I'm trying to make for you. And there's a dude that played a whole bunch for the Jaguars, and everybody constantly wanted him on the field all the time. So I'm pulling up the depth chart right now, right? And I'll tell you exactly who it is. And y'all, Trey Herndon. Was it Herndon? I think it was Trey Herndon. Trey Herndon was the backup, and everyone raved about him. He was like the 3rd or 4th corner, right? When you don't consider the nickel. So he was actually their 4th because they had Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, and Shaquille Griffin. You remember us sitting there looking at Trey Herndon like, man, he's all right. He's pretty good, but he ain't really a starter. Then whenever somebody gets hurt, Trey Herndon as that 4th cornerback is out there getting burnt to the smithereens. That guy is now Jarian Jones. If we say they're going to draft another number 1 corner, at the very least, Jones is the 4th corner who's versatile, who's Trey Herndon, who was all over the you see what just happened? You think Jarian Jones is a better player than Trey Herndon? I do too. That's how you upgrade. Some people that you think are going to start, who started on a bad team, they aren't going to start, but they'll still play a lot because of situational football. If the offense is better, they're ahead. That means teams may be in more of a mood to throw the ball. That means you get your best 4 defensive backs on the field, or your best 5, and you're in dime coverage. That means these guys are all on the field at the same time anyway. Detroit did that last year. They had a whole bunch of DBs on the field at the same time because they were scoring points, and teams had to keep up with them. Look at the depth charts. Look at the money that they spend on folks. Look at the good teams in their depth charts. Look at Kansas City in 2024, in 2023. There were people that started for the Chiefs this year that were bench players the year before when L'Jarius Sneed was there. But the guy who took his place was already on the roster. Now imagine he was their dime corner. That's who they were winning with. We have to try to give these folks a chance to build this team. Sometimes it doesn't come from the top. Sometimes it doesn't come from the bottom. I have said it ad nauseum. Sometimes it means injecting talent right in the middle. Things that you need aren't always readily available to you. You have to win the day. Who is the best player that we can get that will help us get to where we want to be? The Jaguars got one of the best slots in the NFL, and people are still upset. Come on, man. Woosah. Calm down a little bit. Calm down a little bit. Unfortunately, we play pretend GM on podcasts. I did it as a fan. That's not reality. That's us in our own brain. Reality is what the team actually does. We don't know if it's going to work or not. I did this same thing with Trent Baalke. I waited, and once I realized it, it confirmed that he was exactly what I thought he was. And that's when I turned up the heat. This is not the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You could have agreed with me about all of that stuff. That doesn't mean I'm going to get on this podcast and tell you stuff that I don't believe and say stuff just to make one or two people happy. That's not who I am. It's not who I'll ever be. Y'all will find that out real quick when you keep talking crap to me. I want you to watch your mouth because you don't really understand who you're dealing with. Don't make yourself look silly, man. All you got to do is just come and listen to the podcast. I don't know if what they're doing is right. It's just my job to explain it to you the best way I can. I'm happy about the Jaguars' move so far. And you know what? Most of them are things outside of Pat Makari. He's the only guy that I mentioned that they signed. And I'm okay with it. I'm all right with it. Because I'm not the one that has to coach him. And I'm not the one y'all will be looking at when it doesn't work. I said this, and I'll say the last thing. If we know what they're going to do, there's something wrong with them and something wrong in that building. I love the fact that a lot of people have been making predictions and they got them wrong. You know what that tells me? That tells me that nobody else around the league knows what they're doing either. And to me, that is a plus, not a minus. You guys make sure you tap in the Locked On NFL Draft with my boy Damian Parsons and my boy Coach Keith Sanchez. You get it. Locked On NFL Draft is overall truth, and it makes it easier now to do your mocks because guess what? You know where these teams in the direction they're trying to go in free agency, and you know how they're going to move. So make sure you check it out. Tap in. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL and Locked On Jaguars.